Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Connection. My name is Becky Robinson, and I am so thrilled to be visiting today with Bob Miglani on the topic of Embrace the Chaos. So as you're coming into today's event, we would ask you to take a moment and find the chat panel. And when you do so, we would ask you to select all panelists and attendees when you talk to us in chat. And what we'd love to hear is, where are you calling in from today, and what are you grateful for? The what are you grateful for is a daily prompt, and we are all trying so hard to stay focused on those good things in our lives that we can appreciate during these difficult times. So hi, Bob, how are you?
I'm great, Becky. How are you?
I'm doing well. So we're going to allow people to get in this morning, and as you're coming in, we would welcome you to say hello in the chat and also let us know what you might be grateful for today. I'm grateful that the connection to Facebook Live worked for me today. And a shout out to my Facebook friend who actually gave some Zoom pro tips, which is why I was able to get it to work today. Gina Carr is the one who's responsible for the Facebook Live working for me today. So welcome, Erica in North Carolina. Thanks for joining us today. And we're going to get started with Bob in just a few moments, but I want to first introduce you to Bob. Bob Miglani is the best-selling author of Embrace the Chaos, which is his journey of learning to move forward in times of change, which is so appropriate right now, isn't it? So Bob worked at Pfizer for 23 years, grew up running his family's Dairy Queen store, and today helps leaders and organizations embrace change and disruption. Bob lives with his 3 kids and his spouse in a small town in New Jersey. So again, Bob, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So appreciate all of you who have joined and those who are sharing what you are grateful for. I would invite you to select all panelists and attendees as you type in the chat today so that everyone can read what you're sharing. And so, Bob, as we get started today, we want to address what's obvious to everyone. And the fact is that we're all facing hard and uncertain times ahead.
Yes.
So how do we as professionals and leaders deal with all of this uncertainty and chaos, which, frankly, feels like it gets worse every day?
Yeah, Becky, I think it's a very, very important time for us because, we want to be, first and foremost, grateful for our families, our friends, our connections like yourself that you're making here. I think that's a very important thing. The second thing I think is to recognize, to accept it. The world has fundamentally changed. There's going to be this pre-pandemic world and this post-pandemic world. We have to come to terms with that. We have to accept that. When change often happens is we ignore it. We think it's not going to happen to us. We think it might happen later on. But if we accept that, number one, change is here, and second thing is we can't change the world. We can't control it. What we can only do, really, Becky, is to control ourselves. That's really the beginning of how we move forward through these uncertain, complicated, random sort of, and fast times that we live in. I call it the 4 forces of chaos: uncertainty, unpredictability, randomness, and speed. Things are very complicated today. And so if we're really going to move forward in these times, it begins with accepting that we can't control all of those things, but we can't control ourselves. We can control our words, our thoughts, our actions, things we do every day. Being grateful for the kind of people that we have, but also the energy and the effort we put to helping somebody move forward through that chaos. I think that's really the center of how we move forward in these crazy times.
So I want to spend a minute before we move on to the next question. First of all, I realize that I got started a little bit early, so people are just starting to join us. It just turned over to 12. I was a little bit ahead of myself. So welcome to those of you who are joining us. We are here today for the Daily Connection with Bob Miglani and talking about the topic of Embrace the Chaos. And we started out with this idea that in order to move forward, to embrace the chaos, we first have to accept the change that's happening. And I'm wondering, Bob, for those of us who may be having trouble coming to terms with all these crazy changes in the world, what does that actually look like? How does one go about accepting changes? And what guidance can you give us if we have resistance to accepting it?
Right. I think one of the things that happens when we face change and uncertainty and complexity in this world that we live in now, we face it, we ignore it, or we keep asking the question, why? Why did this happen? How did this happen? Oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. And we go around this spiral of anxiety and self-doubt that's based on overthinking, overanalyzing, and trying to say, why did this happen? Why did this happen? How did this happen? How did we get here? All of a sudden, last week, I was going to this meeting, and all of a sudden, everything is canceled. We're stuck at home for the next foreseeable months, maybe ahead. And so this notion of how it happened, why it happened, and why me? Oh my gosh, why me? Why did this happen to me? I was just getting my groove. I was just going to do this new thing. I just got into this relationship. We're just in a good position right now. Why does this happen to me? And the truth is, there's no answer for that. We don't know. The only thing we know is we can't control those things. We can't change it, and we can't control it. So acceptance comes from this realization, this fundamental realization is that we live in this world where we can't control it and we can't change it. The only thing we really have control over is ourselves. So what does it look like on a day-to-day basis is that, my spouse and I, we go to bed evening, it's like, oh my gosh, what did this happen? And we get this reinforcement from the news, right? Here are the numbers, here's what's happening, here's who's doing the lockdown. And it's very stressful. And you plant that seed in your mind at night and you don't sleep well, and you wake up the next day groggy and you wonder why you feel very negative. Well, I learned, actually I did this recently. I turned off the TV. I really turned off the TV. Even when you go on Netflix to entertain yourself, Becky, Pandemic, Contagion, these movies are presented to us with all this negativity. And so what happens is we have this clarity of the current with this environment, and we're just feeding on that. And so practically speaking is turn it off. Really, just turn it off. It's not going to, yes, it's going to change. It's going to evolve. But you can't control any of those things. So just turn it off. You'll wake up in the morning. So turn it off at night. Really focus on something positive. Your family, your friends, your loved ones. Having real conversations with them. Not about all the negativity, but maybe about the good times. One of the things we did was we looked at baby pictures of our kids, 10 years ago on the TV with the whole family around. And so what that does is it gives you positive seeds, positive energies of being grateful, being happy. And then you go to sleep and you rest full sleep. So practically speaking, acceptance is not avoiding things. It's about accepting that, these things are going to happen. This change is going to exist with or without you, right? And so what you can do is to let go of that. That's the fundamental thing we have to learn to let go, is let go of this notion of trying to control things and feel like it's all me, all me, all me. When you let go, the stress, when you hold on to something, you get stress, right? When you let go, the stress is released. And what happens is you open up to new opportunities, new ways of thinking, new friends, new possibilities. That's really the way we accept it, is to stop looking at that world, stop trying to control it, be positive, be more proactive at what you put into your mind. And then in the morning, instead of turning on Twitter and the news and all of that, go and exercise. Do some yoga, do some meditation, do all the tools we know gives a good blood flow. And then you can get into all that craziness, because you can't control the rest of the day. You can control your morning. So those are some of the tips that I use, Becky, that might be helpful.
Yeah, that is really helpful, Bob. So I want to pause for a moment and ask our attendees, how well are you implementing this idea of turning it off? I will own that I am not doing very well. My first step in the morning is to grab my phone and look at the news or look at Facebook, and that's not helpful or healthy. So let us know in the chat, select all panelists and attendees, and if you are successful at turning it off, put yes, and if you're not, put no. Thanks, Rob. You're watching TV, not watching TV, but you are using social media. It looks like there are quite a few people who are struggling like I am. A couple of people saying that they're not sometimes.
It's hard. We want to sort of look at what's happening. We get this fear mode, like, oh, what did I miss? What did I miss?
Well, I feel like there's this adrenaline around like what's going to happen next. Like, I live in the state of Michigan, on the border between Michigan and Ohio. And yesterday I got a call like, oh, there's going to be a lockdown. Well, that sends you spinning, right? So just the wondering of what's going to happen next. So let's talk some more, Bob. What is the most important thing that we can focus on or should focus on each day to improve our well-being in these times, and, or in other times that we may be facing change in our organizations?
I think there's two things, Becky, that's really important. I think first is our mindset, and having a mindset that, this is a short period of time. We don't know how long, right? But we say, okay, generally speaking, you have to give some clarity of what that future looks like. That's a really second thing is, to reimagine sort of the future ahead. In uncertainty, the biggest thing is that we have is this clarity of the current, all the chaos that we see. And so we can't see the future. We can't see beyond that. And what I'm suggesting is we try to picture a year ahead, 2 years ahead, where things are a little bit different, yes, but things have improved. Things have gotten better. Let me give you a simple example. We all, I tried to lose weight beginning of the year. I say, oh, I'm going to lose 15 pounds. Oh, by Christmas, I'm going to lose 15 pounds. And you write that goal, 15 pounds on a piece of paper, and you put it in. It's not very compelling to get up in the morning to exercise to get there. But there's the reimagining the future, okay? Here's reimagining future is you say to yourself, okay, Thanksgiving, I'm going to go upstairs, put on my favorite pair of jeans, fit so smoothly inside those jeans, feel good, look at myself in the mirror and say, Bob, you did a great job, go down. My family looks at me and says, wow, you look so great. What'd you do to lose all that weight? That's what reimagining the future looks like. That visual of something that you've achieved, okay, the outcome, the result of what you're trying to achieve is going to be what's compelling at January, February, March to get you in the outside to go and exercise. So if the goal is 15 pounds, losing 15 pounds, the imagining the future is fitting great in those pair of jeans. And so what I'm suggesting, if you take that example, in the mind, we need visuals. We need compelling things that we desire to pull us forward. And so what I'm suggesting is, you don't have to ignore the chaos, okay? Accept that it's there and expect that things are going to get worse, okay? Just expect it. Accept it and expect it. And then what happens is you say to yourself, okay, you know what, a year from now, I have hope. Hope is a very powerful thing. And you get that hope by giving a visual of what the future looks like. Because that's what's going to pull you out of bed in the morning. That's what's going to say, okay, you know what, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. And it being that, I think, positive and looking at that future for your family and your friends is really a shining beacon for us to move forward.
So can you work with me on that for a minute, Bob? So for those of us who may be stuck thinking, okay, I get it. I can imagine a better future when the jeans fit nicely. But in our world where, many family members might be losing their jobs, there are so many uncertainties, even with students, will they go back to campus? Will our elementary and high school kids finish out the school year? All these like big questions. So work with me on how we imagine a better future after the pandemic.
Yeah, I have my spouse as a small business, and this past week she closed and proactively, voluntarily closed. She has staff, she has to pay for it. So what's she going to do? And it's very tight. So no income coming in, for no business coming, no revenues coming in, and she's got to do that. I have friends, I have lots. I get it. I mean, this is a very difficult time. I think what we have to learn to do is to say, look, number one, when you are facing chaos is when you're going to get the most creative and resourceful. Okay, so what happens is the mind is a muscle and it requires tension and resistance to grow. And if you don't face tension and resistance, you're not going to get creative. So this is tension, right? This is tension to the 10th degree. And so you're going to face all these challenges, but recognize you're going to get creative and you're going to get resourceful to figure it out. So how do you reimagine that future? So how do you say to yourself, okay, what's that going to look like? Well, I think one, the most fundamental thing is that those of us who are in this world have seen a lot of dramatic change over the years. It always looks worse than it really is, okay? And so I'm not one of these people who's like, rah, 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 go home, go big or go home. I think what we have to do is to be realistic about the fact that, the human race has existed for all these centuries, so millennia. We will get through it. We'll find a way to get through it. It's going to be hard. It's going to take a long time. It's not going to look like what it looked like in the past, but that's okay because I have the resiliency to figure it out as we go. And so I don't think there's a real straight answer to your question, Becky, of what does that reimagined future look like? What I wake up every morning and saying is, I believe that I have something to contribute to making somebody else's life better. I'm going to focus on that. And that's going to exist today. It's going to exist 6 months from now, 6 years from now, a year from now, whatever that is. It's going to exist some way, shape, or form. What I have to do is to get my mind in a place where I can adapt and navigate in that environment. And that's really the key, is to reimagining that future, is to say, it's about what I can do, not about the world. We can't predict what the world will look like. We don't. We can't predict that. We can predict is what we're going to look like in that new world, which is somebody who's, who puts in the effort, puts in the dedication, is focused on commitment, and adjusting to as time flows and changes.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So who do we want to become in the future is something we can control.
Yes.
But the circumstances around us are something that we can't control.
That's right. Absolutely.
That's really helpful. So it's really easy to get and feel fear in this environment when the future does look bleak, and hearing things like this could be 18 months,
Yes.
all of those scary things that we're hearing. So Bob, do you have some tips for reducing our fear of the future?
I think as I start thinking about the future and getting into this spiral, because it's really complicated. And if you think about all the different things that could potentially happen, right? Consumers are fearful of getting all these things that can happen. Is your mind gets into this spiral. So what I typically do is I push away from the desk, from the computer, push away, and I interrupt the pattern. I break the pattern of my negative thinking by shifting my body, shifting my place, and really I do the 10-finger breathing exercise, which is very simple. And a Barry-Collar author taught it to me a few years ago at a retreat. Basically, I just breathe. And the breathing exercise is you close your eyes, and it's 10 seconds, really. It's 10 seconds, you close your eyes. So you do this 10, you go through all the 10 fingers, and you step away from where you are. Go for a walk, go for a run. You change your mood, you change your position where you are, and you interrupt that negative pattern. And what that does is it changes your perspective. And then the other thing is you call people, you talk to people. And you try to surround yourself with people who are not as doom and gloom kind of thing. And so it's really about interrupting that pattern, doing some exercises, breathing exercises, going for a walk or run, and meditation. And I found that with all this chaos that absolutely I see like everyone else sees, is those little things have been really helpful. It gives me perspective, and that's really what we need today.
We sure do. So Joanne reminded us that yesterday, Joan and Jeannie suggested the question, what story do I want to be able to tell on the other side of this? Which aligns really closely, Bob, to what you're saying about, who do I want to become on the other side of this? And that can be helpful in reimagining the future. So thanks, Joanne. So we're open to some questions from all of you. What questions do you have for Bob about embracing the chaos? And Bob, I'm curious if there's anything else that's on your mind today that you think could be of value to those who have joined us.
Sure. I'll give you a story, Becky. I was in India some years ago. I asked somebody, my cousin, I said, I'd like to take a bus. I'd like to do what locals do here. And he said, Bob, you're from America. I was born in India. I grew up in the US. So he said, you're an American. You can't take a bus here. I said, no, I want to do what locals do. So we go to the bus stop. There was not a bus stop. It was a dirt road. And he says, okay, get ready. I said, what do you mean? I'm here. He said, well, there's a bus coming. So I looked to the right. And this bus that's completely filled with people hanging with their fingernails all around the bus in the metal, the windows, completely full. People on top, people falling. And I looked at a dirty windshield, and the driver has no intention of stopping. And so what happens in India is the bus comes and slows down, but it speeds up. It doesn't stop. And you have to run and get on the bus. My mouth was on the floor. I said, I am not getting on that thing. There's no room. He stopped running and he says, what happened? I said, there's no room. I'm going to wait for the next bus. And so he said, no, they're all the same. They're all completely full. The next bus comes, same thing. In my mind's like, what are you doing? You're going to fall down, break your leg, go to the hospital. Have you seen the needles over here? Nobody ever washes their hands. What's going on? Right? So you have all this overthinking, and the bus went by. And my cousin's frustrated. He said, come on, you can't do this. I said, no, I'm a New Yorker. I worked in New York too. I can do this. And then finally, the third bus comes completely full. And my mind starts overthinking and what are you doing? You're an executive. You fall down. You don't need to be doing this. And then I saw this older woman next to me. She started, she started running. So I'm like, well, if she can do it, why can't I? So I started running. I found myself running. And I've caught a piece of the bus that's on there. I caught a little pole. I found myself running because she was running. And I did it. I caught myself placed on the bus. I fell, and some guy helped me back on the bus. Mm-hmm. I was on the bus. I had no idea where we were going. I didn't know where my cousin was. I didn't know who I had to pay. Completely overcrowded bus. But here's the point. If you wait for perfection, you get nowhere in life. You have to stop waiting for perfection because we know nothing is perfect. The future will not be perfect. There's no future. There's no perfect job, career, business, or life. There's nothing that's perfect. We wait for perfection and we lose opportunity. We lose momentum. So I suggest, Becky's really stop waiting and start running. Start getting involved, start contributing in some way, start doing something about your life so that you can move forward. Always be moving forward, Becky. That's what I learned from that bus story. And then just one last thing is that if you happen to fall, the universe will send you somebody to help you back up, whether it's a friend, a colleague, whatever that might be.
I love that story, Bob. And I'm curious, where did you end up that day? Where did the bus take you?
My cousin was in the back. We were going to the marketplace apparently, and he said, "All right, time to get off." And you have to really run back off. So I was just in a maze, and it was like the third stop. Basically, it wasn't a stop. It was just an area where you used just to get off. So we went to the marketplace that day.
Oh, wow. How'd you get back?
We took a scooter back.
Okay. So I have a question here from Rob, and I hope you'll have a point of view on it. He said that he spent a lot of time talking with people that he works with, and it seems like the whole idea of social distancing can create increased anxiety because we get in our own heads, and that talking it out with someone else really helps. So do you have any advice on staying social while physically distancing?
Yes, I did that last night actually. I have some friends who are on this text message group, and we all send messages to each other about various things that are happening around this coronavirus. And so what we did last night, I put the kids to bed. Everyone put the kids to bed. We got a beer, and we just had a call. We had a Zoom call, and we just talked about things. We say what's going on in your life, what happened today, what did we learn. I think it was helpful that it was late at night, and instead of watching TV, we spoke to people. And then the other thing is that, in Zoom calls, we often use it for work and business, where we have this formality. And so I encourage you to have informal Zoom calls with people that are random, that are in your circle, and, have a drink, just have informal conversation as much as you possibly can. And do it just because, this is the time I realize, Becky, it's a very good question, is more and more people are lonely and feel isolated. And so every single night before I go to bed, I text people and I email people to say, how are you doing? Would love to catch up. Can we do a call? Mm-hmm. So, and then what happens is that night or the next day, I've got people to talk to. Okay. And so it sets up so it gives me purpose to wake up in the morning and say, hey, I've got to talk to Becky the next day. I've got to talk to Tim. I've got to talk to this person the next day. So that's what I try to do, is to have informal conversations on Zoom and these technologies, Google Hangouts, whatever, FaceTime, whatever you have. Invite as many people as you possibly can. You'll be surprised a lot of people join.
For sure. I've heard about that too. One of the clients that I'm serving has instituted a weekly virtual happy hour, Thursdays at 5:30. I saw the Barrett Kohler authors have started something similar. And I love the idea, though, that can go beyond just your professional connections, but to personal connections, get face-to-face with people. I've been thinking about, I was actually thinking about, I wish the weather would get warmer because we have a fire pit. And I thought, is there a way to do a physically distant bonfire and actually still see people? Absent a lockdown, maybe that would work.
Yes, good idea.
So if those of you who are listening have any ideas also about staying connected, even with social distancing, we'd love to hear it. And, I'm so grateful for all of you who have chosen to join in. Bob, why don't we, could you do like a recap of all the tips that you shared so far? I find that it's really helpful to revisit.
Sure. Absolutely.
Thanks.
So I think, fundamentally, the world has changed. We know that. And it makes us scared, fearful, anxious, and stressed out. There's the 3 tips that I have as part of embracing the chaos. I'd really say 4 things that might be really powerful to help you. One is letting go of the past mindset. And when we let go, when we hold on to something in the past of expectations of how we think the world is or should be or was, we get stressed. We get stressed right here. So when we let go, you open up. And you open up for new opportunities, new ideas, new ways of thinking. So that's the first thing, is to let go of the past mindset. The second is accept that this change in this new world is here, and that you don't necessarily have control over those things. Like, we can't. I have a tough time controlling my kids. I've been home for a week. I have 3 kids. I can't control my kids to think I can control life. One of them is going to come in here any minute. And right, so we all have that fear. So you can't really control that, but you can control yourself. You can control your words, your thoughts, your actions. Okay, what we do every single day, we control. So accept that you can control yourself and focus your energies on controlling the way you think, the way you act to navigate around that. And the third is to stop overthinking, stop overanalyzing why it happened, how it happened, and what is going to happen. Human beings are terrible at predicting the future. Terrible at predicting the future. We didn't see this coming. And guess what? We're not going to see the solution coming. It's there. We just can't see it. We're very myopic, right? Myopic. So we can't really see the solution coming. It's there. And then the fourth thing is, Becky, I like to say, is move forward. Always be moving forward. Take action, contribute, exercise, do breathing exercises, step away from the table, step away from feeding the mind. I would say that, the mind, you have these seeds that go in. And if you give it a negative seed, you give a bad seed, you're going to feel terrible, the whole day. Give yourself a positive seed, you can harvest the reward all day. So that's sort of a summary of embracing the chaos.
Well, and I think that you mentioned something about turning off the news. Turn it off at night, turn it off in the morning, which we all, can get better at doing. I think one of the things that's really been helping me through these days is to remember that today's the only day I have to deal with. So if I get overwhelmed thinking about what's ahead, well, I have today. So what is it that I can do today? And which is a little bit in contrast, I think, Bob, to what you said about we have to look ahead to the future. So can you respond to that? Like, how do we balance the let's just get through today mentality, which may help us stay present, with, the need to reimagine a different future?
Well, I think what we have to do is to work towards it, right? It's the idea of what do you want trying to work towards? The idea is that what do I imagine my future a year from now? I imagine a healthy, happy family. I imagine myself, potentially a little bit slimmer because of the lockdown. I can, eat less possibly.
Oh, I'm eating more. Oh my goodness.
Gosh.
My daughter brought home these Oreos that have Pop Rocks in them.
Oh, Pop Rocks. So
in the Oreos.
Oh
yeah,
gosh.
I'm eating more. Can I get some response in the chat? Who's eating more? I'm not going to lose 15 pounds during this.
I don't know. I think it's, you're right. I think it's difficult to lose weight but I think for me, I'm imagining myself going and walking around every day. I got out of the house, I go for a run or a walk. I take my kids for the first time. We went, the whole 5 of us in our family, 3 kids, my wife, and the dog. We went for a walk. I mean, my gosh, this hasn't happened in I don't even know how long. And it was very strange, but it was wonderful and we started doing it every day. And so going outside, these are things that we can do today. But the point is, in the future is you have to think about what that future looks like, okay? Right now, we can't help but see a negative future. And so our mind doesn't know the difference between the negative and the positive. So we go to movies, we cry, we laugh at the movies. It's fiction. It's a story on the screen. We have to give our mind something hopeful to look towards. And I would say to you is to come up with what that looks like for you. Whatever that business looks like for you, whatever that family looks like for you, how does that look like? So put that together and to say, well, work backwards. How am I going to get there? Right? And that means doing these habits every single day, being grateful, the kind of things you are, and putting in some work to move your business forward.
That's really helpful, Bob. I bet there are some people on the call who might want to find out more about you and the work that you do in the world. So let's take a moment. Tell us how people can stay connected to you.
I post a video on LinkedIn twice a week, all about embracing change, disruption, reinventing ourselves, transforming ourselves. It's on LinkedIn, so Bob Miglani, Miglani. And so it's also bobmiglani.com. I have a YouTube channel as well. But LinkedIn, I found for professionals, is a very positive platform as well. So I do that. And then my book is called Embrace the Chaos. And you can get that on Amazon. I've written a couple of books. But Embrace the Chaos is 12 stories of like the India experience of how do we move forward in our life.
So Kelly, I'm going to ask if you could take those links that you just posted, LinkedIn, and then Bob's website and the book link, and make sure that you select all panelists and attendees so that our attendees can see it. Kelly, if you wouldn't mind, Kelly has those links for you. She has Bob's LinkedIn, Bob's website, and also Bob's um, book. And we would encourage you to check that out. I was surprised, Bob, when I landed on your website this morning that you have your phone number there.
Yes,
So, just like Bob said, we can text our family and friends. We can text Bob because
yes,
Bob put his cell phone number
absolutely.
right on his website for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Schedule a call, reach out to me. The one of the things I get meaning from is helping other people with my journey, my ideas, my actions. That's what drives me. That's why I wrote books. That's why I speak. That's why I do these kind of things. And I think that the connection of helping somebody else is something that helps us move forward in life. So I'm happy to help.
Well, thanks so much for that. So as we close today, I want to thank you again for joining us. And again, I hope you'll find out more about Bob. And we are going to be back next week. At the current time, we are scheduled to be here with the Daily Connection through April 15th. Now, next week is going to be a bit different because we did have some already scheduled webinars. And so on the days that we have already scheduled webinars, we will invite you to attend those hour-long events, but they will require a unique registration. So I will be in your email every morning letting you know who our guest is, letting you know if you need to register separately for an hour-long event. And we look forward to seeing you every weekday between now and at least April 15th. We could extend longer depending upon the need and interest. I want to let you know quickly that my company, Weaving Influence, specializes in providing digital marketing and media support for authors, thought leaders, and training consulting companies. We also partner with nonprofits and other purpose-driven organizations. So in the event that my team or I could support you in any way, you are always welcome to email me. I am Becky at Weaving Influence. And if you were here yesterday, this is a new t-shirt. I have two. They're clean. I promise I'm getting dressed-ish to come to these events. And I would also welcome you, if you've gotten emails from me, to go ahead and text me to check in as well. We all want to stay connected and encouraged throughout these times. Now, if you haven't already, we would also invite you to join our Facebook group. And those of you who are attending the Daily Connection can talk with each other, share your ideas and insights in that Facebook group. Thanks, Melanie. Melanie's mentioning that she's home for 6 weeks in France. So glad that you could join us, and I hope you'll keep coming back. So thanks so much, Bob.
Thank you.
Take care and have a good weekend.